from youth age, it's my passion of the game, and I want to play at that time when I was a kid, and I grew up. I do love to coach, and I think I like to promote the sport, and I always have a good vision to see how can we grow better players, how can we have top level players.
Unleash your serve's power. Join our academy and dominate the court. Spots filling up fast. Enroll now.
Welcome to the Silicon Valley Tennis Show. I will be right back.
Did you dream of hitting aces and dominating the court? Silicon Valley Tennis Academy is your one-stop shop for becoming a tennis champion. We offer expert coaching, world-class facilities, and a supportive community to help you reach your full potential. Whether you're a beginner or a seasoned player, we have programs designed to fit your skill level and goals. Learn from experienced coaches who are passionate about the game and dedicated to your success. Join our growing team of talented players and see how Silicon Valley Tennis Academy can take your game to the next level. Visit our website at www.siliconvalleytennis.com to learn more and enroll today. Don't miss your chance to be a part of something special.
Welcome to Silicon Valley Tennis Podcast. In this special episode, welcome to tennis visionary and leader Dale Evans. We will discuss minority tennis programs and cover secrets to become an standard tennis player. Dale Evans is a wonderful, great friend of mine with a big mind force behind the USTA Billie King in New York. And get ready for this wonderful conversation with Dale. Dale, how you doing?
I'm doing well, Francisco. It is great to see you, as always, and awesome to be on, and thanks for inviting me on.
Dale, we met many years ago, and you are, to me, one of the most amazing leaders in the minority program. That's how I see it. From the time that you played juniors to the time you became to be a manager, you became to be a head pro, you went to college, you have done many activities for the Tennis Federation, for NorCal, now national. Tell me more about this wonderful journey that you really have.
Well, I think one of the first things, Francisco, is always acknowledging the people that bring us into all these circles. And for me, a large part of my parents were phenomenal in introducing us to sports at a young age, and always promoting a certain work ethic. So obviously, Pauline Sanders and Jake Evans are awesome. But from a tennis standpoint, all honor and thanks go to, the guy that not only brought me through many of the tennis pathways, including the industry, but also that brought you and I together at a certain point in time. And his name is Mr. Mark Manning, who would be the first minority and diverse president over any USTA section in the country. I think that year was either 2000 or 2001 when he held the USTA NorCal presidency. So, a lot of aspects of my opening of doors and pathways and opportunities were naturally laid. The groundwork was laid by what he did. And obviously he brought you and I together and a host of other great tennis providers together on the USTA NorCal back then multicultural committee. And then obviously, it goes back a pretty good amount of ways. And and then that changed at a certain point in time, probably 4 or 5 years after 2001, 2002, to as we know it, the USTA NorCal Diversity Committee, and obviously now the Diversity and Inclusion Committee. So for me, tennis really started at the Elmhurst Tennis Center in Oakland, California, small 4-court facility. I was, fortunately for myself, I was one of the first, if not the first, Division I scholarship athlete to come from Mark's program. And obviously that may have opened the doors for a host of other phenomenal players, such as Philip Graham, who played #1 at Foothill College, Aaron Ellis, who was top 75 in the nation, I believe, and was top 5 in Northern California and played for Penn State and also UC Irvine. And Aaron's sister, Ariel Ellis, who played #1 at University of Texas and was a 2-time All-American. So, my pathway was just a part of one of the pathways forged by Mark. And fortunately enough, I was able to go on and play at Jackson State and come back into the tennis industry and meet a bunch of great people like yourself and travel to a bunch of great places and work with tons of phenomenal tennis providers and tennis players.
Let me ask you. You started a program in Oakland in difficult times when, and still to today, Oakland needs lots of help. What do you think tennis has given it to you from youth age to the 4 tennis courts? I remember to go there to play a match and see what is around you. To the audience, to people that want to get into tennis, the younger kids, the minority kids, what can we do for them? How can we push them to be better and learn something that you and I will love? What is your opinion on this?
Well, I think the #1 thing that tennis gave me and also many of my tennis brothers was a purpose and a place. When we came to tennis facilities, there were many times where it was our family, and we did a lot more than tennis, at these facilities. We hung out together, we played basketball together. We did many extracurriculars such as bowling and late night skating and all those various activities. And the first thing is for programs that are working with youth that come from diverse backgrounds is to really be an all-encompassing place that gives you a purpose. The purpose, I didn't know for myself. I didn't know that I was becoming a decent tennis player. I was hanging out with a pod of about 25 players, most of them older than me, a few slightly younger, and it was our home. It was really our home. If it rained, we were still at the tennis center.
That's nice.
On Saturday afternoons, after tournaments, we were still at the tennis center. When we got in trouble, we were still at the tennis center. So a lot of what we did in the community was around the tennis center in East Oakland.
So you talking about community. Like, how can we make community even better in our professional? I think it's important. How can we make the community get more involved to understand the different activities we have? What do you think of your expertise in that one? Because I know you're very good in these things. How can we do it better for us, like coaches? How can we make it better?
I think the #1 thing is to really identify what community you're in and what that community, what serves that community. Quite unique to where I'm from, which is, in growing up in East Oakland, is at the time was heavily African-American and Latino presence in East Oakland. Obviously that has shifted somewhat, but transitioning here to New York, where I'm in Flushing, a significant amount of our patrons right here in the surrounding area. We have more Asian American influence in this area. We also have a pretty dynamic and diverse population of Italian Americans. We have a good amount of Jewish Americans, and we have a little bit of everything at the National Tennis Center. So one of the things that we're charged with is to make sure that our offerings and our community endeavors and community initiatives really embrace everybody. This is National Women's Month. So, if you come around the indoor training center, we actually have a good amount of marketing and acknowledgement and embracement of Women's National Month. As of last month, we had obviously Black History Month, and we were able to host in partnership with USTA Eastern a cardio tennis event that launched a partnership with New York Presbyterian, and also in honor of American Heart Month, to embrace some of the challenges that African American community may have in accessing tennis. So you have to really find what strikes the chord of that community, and really establish your perspective and your position in that purpose. In the South Bay, where you are, Francisco, you tend to have a little bit more of the Silicon Valley tech, which is the new diversity, right? And so, that means you're probably going to be doing more video analysis, and you're going to be doing some more catchy things than are required out in maybe Sacramento, California, or Fresno, California. So, diversity can mean so many different things nowadays, including the LGBTQ community. So you just have a lot that you can really hit home with. The big thing is, I think, to find the proper communication channel, the proper times, the proper days, and that allows you to establish successful programming, successful connections. I remember at one point, USTA NorCal was very high on, increasing the number of Latinos in the game, and one of the strategies they used was, going to Catholic churches on Sunday, right? And I mean, what better place than to make sure that you're at a Catholic church, and making sure that they know tennis is readily available.
Wow. Dale, before we continue with Billy, with you are in New York, tell me more about Northern California. So you a star. How did you grow? I know USPTA. You became to be USPTA president. You were one of the first Black people, minority people like me, getting into the USTA Northern California director. What is our experience with this? We went to Mexico together.
Yes.
You still love tacos al pastor. That is what, every time I go to Mexico and I see Benjamin eat my tacos al pastor, this is for Dale. Benji can tell you,
yes.
Every time that we go, this is for Dale. We laugh. This weekend we were together celebrating my birthday last week. I was in Mexico City, and we went to eat tacos, and I said, Benji, this is one of the better things there. Let's take our tacos al pastor.
I love it. It's funny. I actually have one of our staff members, one of our programs team member, Jasmine Gracida, is in Mexico City as we speak. Her mother lives there, and we were just debating about tacos last week. And my specific restaurant at the Liverpool Mall is Tacos del Pastor, and I love the tacos right there across from the hotel that we had. The fun part about those were the fun parts about getting involved. I think my first step in involvement in USTA and tennis industry, if you took away me being a tennis player, obviously, USTA is the reason that all of us are tennis, our national tennis competitors at whatever level. It's our governing body, and they're responsible for everything from junior tournaments, adult leagues, to grassroots programming. So if you take the tennis part away, I kind of look at, being a junior at the Elmhurst Tennis Center, which at one point in time, may or may not have been an NJTL. I don't know. I was a kid growing up, but it was definitely a nonprofit, tennis association. And one of the biggest things was I don't ever remember my parents paying for tennis other than my tournaments and a little bit of equipment. Most of the players surrounding me there, where there was a couple of hundred of us that came out of there and a couple of
Nice.
about 30 or 40 of us that are very, very high level tennis players, um, was the relationship that our coach made sure we had with the community. He didn't charge us, and that's a big thing because the way he would make sure we paid is he would make us do community service starting at a very, very young age. He had a role which oversaw or had some role in managing the tennis courts in the city of Oakland. He was also a member of the Oakland Tennis Advisory Council, which was then just called OTAC for short. And every single facility in the city of Oakland,
Nice.
I have done a decent amount of work in, and that really gave me some of the foundation that I have now, at the age of 13, 14, understanding facilities, doing everything from, I mean, it sounds, cliche, but yes, we changed the trash bags. We clean the courts, but also we learn the high level aspects of, proper lighting, proper resurfacing methods, and proper techniques to actually wash courts. We routinely washed our own courts out at the Elmhurst Tennis Center. So a lot of my foundation for understanding, having different perspectives outside of just being a tennis player started there, including the volunteer aspect. And I think for me personally, and not just myself, but many others, that made it a little easier to be involved with committees at the USTA level, to become involved with USPTA. Some people see only the pay method, or that you're getting a paycheck. A lot of what we do in these organizations, USPTA, USTA, also PTR, are volunteer driven organizations. Yes, they're employees that are executive directors and CEOs, but these are volunteer driven organizations. The boards are volunteer, and things of that nature, and their field matter or subject matter experts, but they are volunteering their time and giving back. So that really made it easier for me to dive into being on the USTA NorCal Sportsmanship Committee and the Multicultural Committee, and also evolving to other leadership roles.
So one of the things I hear from you, volunteering is a big thing of your life, and in the same time, maybe the reason you like to help players. You like to help players if you know they are not well off. You can step in and give them some opportunities to train with people like you, people not only in Oakland and Berkeley where you were working. You like to help people, and I think this is one of the beautiful things of being a coach. uh, Try to help the other players. Not everything is involved about the money. Many coaches just want involved the money involved, and I think this maybe the reason we have this relationship, you and I,
Mhm.
because we like to help players, we like to push players, and regardless we get paid or not, in the long run, we step in for them. That's a greatest thing. What is the best coaches that you think they give you mental things? How did you become to be so great? You're an amazing speaker. I see you speaking in USPTA conference. That I say, wow, how can I learn from them? And listen, I say, how can I learn from them? Where you got all this energy? Tell me more about that.
So the first thing is, um, I really have tried to make it a practice for my life to make sure that I'm selective with my mentors, and selective in that my mentors are giving me perspective for me, and usually that perspective for me does best for everybody. Most of almost all of my mentors, except for maybe one, know me really well and have known me, God, for some of them my entire life, some of them 20 years. But the mentors were really great. Now, public speaking, a little bit of a fact as I kind of think about it is my mom went to Toastmasters for probably 20 or 30 years every Thursday night at the San Leandro Library. And she would always, be working on these speeches. And she wanted to sign me up for Toastmasters. And somehow I was able to wiggle away. But, I had a very fond appreciation for public speaking and communicating with confidence and also helping others see perspective. So I think that's a big thing. I have spent so much time at conferences. Most recently, I went to my first PTR symposium at Saddlebrook about 4 or 5 weeks ago in Tampa. And eye-opening, and to see the great players, James Blake, Ivo Karlovic, Mary Pierce, all the above there. And then you have Anthony DeCecco, who is a club owner in Philadelphia, and you have John Borden, who is the head of his tennis organization in Washington, D.C. So I really appreciate the range of perspective. We all have a different perspective. Now, I have to say this before you ask anything else is, my first moments of being mesmerized on a tennis court when I was a young pro, back in 2002 to 2004. And I know you probably didn't ask for this to be said, but when I was on the road with you in 2004 in Mexico City, I said, this is the tempo and the dynamic of type of pro that I want to be. This is the kind of on-court delivery I want to be. And right now, everybody across the world is running the hit one, rotate out, the ping pong tennis exercise. The first time I saw that was on the road with you in 2003, 2004 at Club Alemán.
Yes.
We were warming up Lorenzo Cabrera and Luis Vega and Matthew Elephant and all of those great players. So, taking nuggets, that would have been the first. The second was spending so much time around Rosie Baris, spending so much time around her, and picking up. There's one thing that I did learn big time from Rosie, which is every time we go to a conference, every single hour, I should be learning at least one thing from a speaker, at least one thing. And I might not take 80% of what you say and spoke about, but at least I can learn one thing. And my goal when I'm presenting is to try to send everybody home with a lesson plan that they can use for the next 3 to 6 weeks.
Correct. This is one of the greatest things about you. You learn a lot from different coaches, and you always trying to improve your coaching position. Make a players. The players have to have a plan. They have to have 6 weeks plan, and go back to their coach and work in that plan. That will make them better. And I think that's one of the greatest things the Silicon Valley tried to implement to players. Have a plan. Many times people don't understand the coaches behind is more than just giving them a ball. It's coaching them, giving tools, and prepare. I think this is one of the things that we try to do. Tell me about the best players you've been working on it, because I know you have a list.
we never kiss and tell who we're working on because we like it to be secret, Francisco.
I know, but I know you do.
Yeah. I would say here, at the National Tennis Center, we have a couple of great young players right now in our program. Probably one of the most up and coming juniors. I believe he might have just turned 14. Is a young man by the name of Ishan Bagat. My role with him is a lot different than my role had been in previous, clubs and facilities. I have been on court with him, a time or two, but I really get to enjoy the quality of what our pros do in improving him and helping his game improve. So Ishan would be up there as kind of one of the next up and comers. He also has a sister, Sophia, and we have one who is she may be 9 years old. She's a little awesome tyke, and she loves to wear her pink hat backwards, but her name is Natalie Chelico. Um,
Okay.
and she really rips the ball. Has a little brother named Graham, and she also spends a little bit of time going back and forth to Florida to Chris Everts every blue moon. So those are some of the juniors we have right now here at the National Tennis Center, and a pretty broad range of kids. Obviously, I've been so fortunate over the last 15 years to work with a number of highly accomplished players. Probably my three most recent that really always come to mind are Carl Collins. Obviously, he was number one in NorCal, and I worked with him pretty extensively from about the age of 11 until he went off to college, and he made the all conference doubles team for University of Hawaii in his freshman year, and he's now a junior. So Carl is awesome. He's a great young man who originally comes from Richmond, California, and he hits the nail on the head because there were so many layers of Carl as a tennis player, but also we spent so much time helping Carl just become a young man.
Yes.
It didn't stop with just tennis. I've been around the nation with Carl as a coach to many national events, and been fortunate, to be a part of many of his stories. Every Christmas Eve we would go to the snow tubing. Carl would come snow tubing with my family. Um, and we had a nickname at the academy for Carl. I think him and Marcus Ferrer. I'll let them tell the story of why we came up with a nickname, but we nicknamed Carl Cupcake after our first summer in 2012 of opening the academy. So Carl obviously is one. Diedrich Ray is another, and Diedrich is currently playing for Xavier University in New Orleans. And these two guys are awesome because they're now starting to be in the tennis industry. Carl has been in the tennis industry for a few years and is
Good.
a USPTA certified teaching pro.
Nice.
Diedrich most likely will be teaching tennis in Florida this coming summer, hopefully. And so they're doing awesome. And most recently, it is kind of a funny one because I left California. I was working extensively with Sating Chin, and he lives in Berkeley, and came out and he trained with me last summer for a pretty good amount. And
Nice.
he's now actually back home in California and working out with, I assume he's working out with Rosie Baris. We were able to establish a positive connection with him. And so I hope he's doing well. I believe he's been working out with Rosie since about November or October of this past year.
To tell me more about working with top level players. What does it take? you're a young kid to me because I'm older than you, but like a young kid today's day, what does it take for these players to become to be better than anybody else in the top 100 in the world, get into college?
Hmm.
Tell me more about this, Dale. I really am interested to learn, and that will help a lot to our parents, to the audience that will listen to us. What it takes today to play this game, it didn't take 20 years ago. I think
Correct.
the game today is very tough. I have to
Yeah.
say that. Tell me more.
Well, I think one of the funny things we just had Mark Bay, who was here this past Thursday and Friday on the 29th and March 1st. And you know, Mark is phenomenal at what he does. He's from Chicago,
Uh-huh.
and a highly in high demand as a coach. Worked with the Bryan brothers an extensive amount of time, and most recently was the assistant coach for the Davis Cup team in Lithuania just 5-6 weeks or so ago.
Wow.
And we all hear these different perspectives, and one of the things that is remaining so consistent is commitment to the game, and that Mark discussed. And I thought that was great, not just because he said it this past Thursday or Friday, but because we all know it as teaching pro. Are you gonna start as a parent? Are you gonna align with the philosophy of a coach? And I think that even before we can help these juniors get good, even before we can have fun working with the players, I learned a very valuable lesson through player and parent transition about 15 years ago. And I think it's the number one challenge parents have is to position themselves with the coach that they're comfortable with and that's also comfortable with their kids. So on the other side of that, as teaching pros, we have to learn how not just pick the players because they're really good, because that still might not be a great fit.
Yes.
But we have to really always make sure that we are picking the family and picking the parents as well. All those things need to align in order for it to be a positive working environment for the player, the parents, and the coach. So I think that's the first thing off court, and then from there you can kind of build around the methodology of how you like to see players develop. What's the ratio of practice to private or programs to private? What's the ratio of fitness that's executed? What are the critical periods of training? Right.
That's good.
We always want to have the periodization method, where we go into these 8 to 10 week training blocks, and so really making sure all those things align, and quite frankly, also making sure that we're realistic about the goals that we're setting for kids. When I coach, most recently having Sating and managing his tournament, um, the schedule in 2022 before I got here, he had entered the boys 14s, and I forget what his ranking was exactly, but it was I believe it was just inside the top 35 of Northern California. And the goal for his second year is to cut that ranking in half, right?
Wow.
Is to cut that ranking in half. So that's always my metric for kids entering a division. And,
Uh-huh.
and then their second year should be cutting the ranking in half or better,
That's
uh,
good.
for two reasons. One, I think the number one thing is other players are going to age out,
Yes.
right? So that's the number one thing. But the second thing is we all know the first 3 months is like welcome to the big leagues. Every time you move up, uh, I, I thought, Francisco, I thought the toughest transition, boys 16s to 18s, yeah, these guys have mustaches and beards and they have girlfriends and they drive. That was a tough transition, but I actually thought as a junior, the toughest transition for me personally was from 12s to 14s because wait a minute, in the 14s they actually hit approach shots, you know, right? In the 12s you can hit a short ball and nobody makes you pay for it. But when I got to the 14s, I was like, wait a minute, they make you pay for these short balls. So I thought that was, one as a player, and two, I think really understanding where you are as a player and what you need to grow is very, very important. There's some things we all love to do. I'm very comfortable serving. I'm very comfortable volleying. I'm very comfortable hitting forehands against anybody, personally. Um, my freshman year in college, I learned that a slice backhand down the line to forehands at Division I level is not going to work. And right, and it was and I didn't even have to play other opponents. My college teammates, our number 1 and 2 players when I was a freshman, were Brian Peter from Barbados and Richard Henry from Barbados, 2 of the top players ITF from Barbados. And within the first 6 weeks, they made it very obvious of what's going to work versus what's not going to work at the Division I level.
Wow. Well, you're talking now college. What happened? We need to get more American players play D1 college. We need to support this. I think we need it. That regardless, I came to play for college myself. I think I look at a different college today's day, and you see Russian, Spanish,
right,
France. We don't see that. What can we do to promote more the coaches from the United States to take our college players from America? What can we do in that one? I think this is a very big thing.
I actually think you're 100% right. I think that debate is one that on our side of it, it's an interesting tug of war. And one of the big reasons why is college coaches want to keep their job too. Right, Francisco?
Yes.
And so, not every college is St. John's, which is in the heart, of New York, or Columbia, which is in the middle of Manhattan, or you have Stanford, which is in the middle of Silicon Valley in one of the most beautiful campuses in the world, or Cal Berkeley, which is, in the middle of an urban area. You now have some colleges, and I won't name them because I don't want to get in trouble with coaches or the alumni. But you do have some colleges, and they're in places that it is very, very hard to convince an American tennis player to stay for 4 years. In that city, in that town, if there's not, a lot of things going on. So I think that's the first thing. And then to get them to concentrate on tennis for the next 4 years also.
Yes.
So I think there's always room for both to debate back and forth a little bit. But I think, Dick Gould, Stanford's legendary coach, he proposed the 5/8 rule years ago, that, the majority of your scholarship goes to American players. That obviously didn't go through. But I think that, simply stated, our juniors have to get better. I think number one. I also think number two is that there needs to be the reality of that there's only so many Division I schools versus there are many more playing opportunities all over. I mean, Francisco, yes, I played Division I. Out of my staff, going down the list, probably 6 or 7 of our staff played Division I. Wow. But there's also some really, really good players that, especially going back 20, 30 years ago, were played at NAIA schools because maybe they accepted prize money before this new generation, or the new rules, that is. So you have a lot of other players and a lot of other levels that college tennis is still very, very high. At Division III, I have a player who trained and two players that we trained and won a national title at Emory University in Atlanta. That's still a very high level of tennis.
That's
So
nice.
very, very important to realize that we all know about Stanford, we all know about Harvard, but in New York you have a school called Skidmore, or in California you have a school called Fresno Pacific. And you still have many more opportunities to continue playing. And even going to our director of player operations, Eric Budarak, who I believe Eric, off the top of my head, I think he won 18 titles on the ATP tour,
Wow.
and is a Grand Slam doubles finalist. And Eric played at one of those smaller colleges, and obviously did pretty well. Did pretty
Yeah, you know. So let me change a little bit the topic about college. You've been USPTA president. How can we get involved more people to follow the pathway of coaching with the certification? And I think there's something, and it's something I see many times
well.
when I see coaches, but they don't follow a pathway of coaching. They just do whatever they think their biomechanics is. How can we introduce many coaches to do this, to take a certification, to be certified? I'm a master pro USPTA. I'm a
Right.
master of this. How can we get involved more people in this situation?
I think that there's two. Number one, from what we can do, from what I can do, from what you can do, and anybody who's in our industry and has been in our industry, the number one thing is share our imperfect stories. I think everybody, thinks we went to school for 4 years, we got a degree, we became a head pro or a teaching pro, and then it was just perfect. Everybody has a story, and there's a bunch of different routes to how our story came together. And the reason why I say that is the generation before me, most of the teaching pros didn't make enough money playing professional tennis on the satellite tour, right? Still, yeah,
I'm
just
one of them. I'm one of them.
got
I'm
it.
one of them.
Still very, very good players. Still very, very good players. And I think the more we share that story, the more we connect our, who we are as people and what we've done. My story is just as imperfect as anybody else's. I played one or two qualies for futures. I realized, after those experiences that I needed to pay rent, and
Yes, yes,
and
yes.
and then um, I actually went to get another job outside of tennis at the age of 22 or 23. And I was already teaching a little bit, but I went to get another full-time job. And, going back to my coach, he when he heard that I went to an interview, he pulled me into his office and he repeated a bunch of words that I can't say on the pod. But the bottom line is he ultimately told me this that I'll always remember is that you have a degree in competitive tennis already, and you have a degree in being in tennis and teaching tennis. And this is before I was ever certified. He had already said you've already done all the drills, you've already taught for 6 or 7 summers, and eventually he steered me into the industry and staying in the game that I love the way I do. So sharing our stories, making sure everybody knows that it's not like going to medical school where everything was perfect for 8 years. So that's number one. Number two is looking around and realizing that when we talk to our players that we see something in, if you see that kid being charismatic, fun loving, has an eye for the game, and actually loves the game, this is the best sport in the world. And
It is. I
I'm
agree with you.
you
This
know
is the best sport in the world.
best
I
sport
have
in
to
the world.
say, and many things. The sport in the world, number one, it give you the first, the most important, toughness. Find out the right decision.
Yes,
Second thing, the sport has given it to us, believe in ourselves when we're competing against somebody else. Third
yes,
piece with the game has given it to us. Never give up. And that's one of the great things that you say in the beginning of this. You say, I learned to be a competitor from youth age in the tennis course. Hard worker. We have to be a hard worker. It's not going to happen that you just stand up and my forehand is going to be good. It's
correct.
not going to happen. And I think the last piece the game has given it to us is love to do something that we love so much.
Well, I'm going to say two things on that. My first sporting experience was I played all-star shortstop in Oakland, Babe Ruth, and I had a little bit of a rough experience when I was 11 or 12 in one of the all-star seasons. And my first tennis tournament was the Pacific Coast Championships.
I remember that one. Yes.
Okay, and there was it's an ATA tournament, and right away they had a gala event. There was a huge banquet. They took us to go-karts, and they had a dance. They had a separate dance for the adults and a separate dance for the little kids. And it was my first dance. I was 10 or 11. And right away I said, this is pretty cool because I don't go to the same baseball field every week.
Uh-huh.
I got to play at, Rio del Oro or Modesto Fitness and Racket Club, eventually at Rio Bravo Resort in Bakersfield, and all these various clubs, whether I've traveled and coached across, for forever in the time. So that was number two. Number one, Mark Bay said something, and when I reminded him of it, and he said this at a specialty course I saw him speak at in 2003 in Las Vegas, CTDW workshop. He said he knew he found tennis as his sport when he realized that if you win on Sunday, you don't have to go to church on Saturday. I mean, if you win on Saturday, you don't have to go to church on Sunday because you got to play another match.
Exactly.
Right. And so he and him and I just last week had a big chuckle about it because finally I realized why he said that. And he said the reason why he always said that is because his stepfather is a pastor of a church.
Okay, now I get it.
And so if he didn't win his match on Saturday, he was going to be spending all Sunday in church. And, I came from a family that is, very rich religious history from Mississippi, my parent, mom and dad. And, that was a fun motivating factor was, if I win on Saturday, I get to go back to the tennis tournament. So, tennis has something for everybody.
Yes, I agree. I'm like a coach. I think I still loving it. I'm loving it to coach. I'm still traveling. Like, I'm going all over the world doing my conference, what I have to do. I want to say thank you right here. Savannah doing amazing. She has improved tremendously. And Kyle is amazing, and you always have great connections with people. I do believe these two players will go play college D1. I'm working with them and doing different develop the extension of the arm, making sure they get more quickness. I think today's day the game is a quickness situation, and I go back again, quick respond to people. That's what the game is about. And Dale, we have 10 more minutes. I like to talk about player development.
Yes.
What do we need to do in the next 10 minutes. How can we play player development? You great in this. You had an amazing group of players. How can we start doing better this?
Methodology. In one word, methodology. Um, the biggest thing in our methodology as player development coaches is to make sure that we're training kids who have enough tools to solve all the problems.
Yes.
And that you're gonna spend. I like to work in 6 to 8 week segments.
Correct.
Virtually all my progressions that I take players through are in 6 to 8 week sessions. This week, we may, as an example, if we're focusing on doubles, we may be focusing on forehand side poaching. In week 2, backhand side poaching. In week 3, return side poaching. In week 4, playing and defending against the poach. Right.
Correct.
And so that players have all those various perspectives of how to compete and how to solve all these different problems. Um, the best tennis players are the best problem solvers. Roger has had an immense amount of tools to solve all those issues. When he won that last Australian Open, he finally, cracked the code and started coming over the top of the backhand to, beat Rafa in a number of matches that year.
Mhm.
So, you have that. The second thing is to make sure that pros are being innovative and challenging the training norms. Whether it's myself, yourself, we want to make sure our players are challenged in a closed environment, in those private settings and in the group settings, and so
Yes.
that they really have an understanding. When I put you back out into the field, if you need to serve and volley on match point,
You
then
have to make serve ball.
you have to be able to do it.
Yes.
You have to be able to do it. When I
Yes.
travel with all the team, the juniors national teams that I've been fortunate to go with, or my junior nationals players, um, the biggest thing that I always preach to them are two things. Number one, I want to see you bust your butt to start every game off 15 love.
Good.
Every game 15 love. I want the opponent to feel scoreboard pressure.
Yes.
One thing I learned last week from Mark Bay, very, very interesting. Pop quiz, Francisco. What is statistically the score that is most often lost, where the point is most often lost?
0-40.
Okay. I would have said something like that too. The first thing I thought, I like the quick decision right away. But the first thing I thought is, I said, this got to be a trick question. It's love, love, right? Everybody loses love, love. There's a point, but I think what Mark was angling at was, if it's love, love, you might win the point half the time, and I might win the point.
Correct.
But statistically, the carrying of momentum, we know this as coaches. The first 2 games coming out of the second set, if you won the first set, you better carry the momentum for 2 games. If you lost the first set, you better break momentum for the first 2 games.
Yes.
So statistically, according to Mark last week, the score that's most often lost in tennis is love 30.
Yes, it could be too. Yes, because you lose the momentum. It could go either way. But to me, I think 0-40 because you're so relaxed. And then there's coming 40-15 and say, oh, now I have to win the game. You
Right.
know?
It's an interesting thought. We play these momentum challenges, where 3 points equals one, right?
Okay.
Or we play the bump up rule where 2 points equals three.
Uh-huh.
So challenging kids in different ways. With, if you ever look, there's a great a great coaching consultant, Isaac Broom, or Isaac McBroom, I believe his name is. He recently presented at the PTR Symposium. Phenomenal in terms of establishing coach constraints and performance goals. We all know these things. We've all done it. But, to make sure our players understand, hey, why am I making you only play backhands today? Right?
That's how it should be.
So you have all those challenges. So really challenging players to be versatile enough, uh, you know, to have familiarity in all four quadrants of the court. Short deuce, short ad, deep ad, and to be able to play that fifth zone that Rafa Nadal and David Ferrer
Oof.
and Medvedev all love so much. So those are the big things we need to do in terms of player development as coaches, is make sure that you're challenging your players everywhere on the court.
Everywhere on the court. Today, what do you think is the number one shot professional players using and young kids they are learning? What do you think is the grand stroke or a shot? Because it's not a grand stroke. Maybe you correct me. Do you think it's a grand stroke or a shot? What do you think is the number one used today in the game?
Are you going to say swing and volley?
Nope.
Well, it's got to be the serve.
The service is the most important. You don't think so? The drop shot became to be a weapon today's day.
Oh, absolutely.
So we need to teach.
Well, that's my favorite shot. That's my best shot.
You see, drop shot.
Yeah.
You hit the ball so hard that the only thing I have to do is just feel the ball. I have to feel the ball.
Well, and I also think the reason why it's become, obviously, the trends come from us watching great players.
Yes.
Roger has a phenomenal drop shot, and I think a lot of people, pick up on that. Similar to like basketball players watching Michael Jordan.
Mm-hmm.
So that's number one. But number two, the lateral mobility of players has extended so far behind the baseline that the only way to keep them honest and to create passing lanes is to use the drop shot. So you force their positioning to move up tactically a little bit more, and gives you just a little more space to start working those passing shots.
And I think we need to start working more in the smash. I think some players don't work that much on the juniors in the smash.
Mm-hmm.
You bring them to the net and they don't know what to do in the smash. They think it's only hit one ball hard and the ball come back and they don't know what to do.
Absolutely. I think I would add on to not only the smash. I think that the biggest thing we can do for our kids in tennis is to make sure they're well-rounded people and well-rounded athletes.
Yes.
I want to see young boys and young girls throwing footballs. I want to make sure they're able to use both hands, in doing exercises biomechanically. I want to make sure that they're not static athletes, that they have a good amount of plyometrics in their system. We have Satoshi down at the national campus who is phenomenal with emphasizing these things. And so you have a great amount of range. And most recently, Carl Davies has done an extensive amount of work for USTA and Sports Society as a whole in, making sure we better define the athletic development model. So those are all great resources.
That we have this in the USTA platform so parents can go into this and look at it. I think that's good.
I will make sure. I will see. I don't want to guarantee it,
Okay.
but I know Carl has definitely shared it with teaching pros across the board. He came here and did a presentation in May of last year. He actually is going to be here doing another presentation at the Tennis Innovation Summit on March 23rd, and he'll be doing coach education the day before that also. So I'll connect him with you, Francisco, and with anybody else. But I only have one thing. You have to make sure that, you have to make sure I get some chicharrón from Mexico City or Tacos del Pastor.
Let me tell you, chicharrón I find in San Jose, in a beautiful place in Chicharrón. Tacos al Pastor, we have to go to Mexico City. Dale, our time is almost over. I know we can talk all day long together. I just want to say thank you so much for joining me today, to all these parents, they're learning, and coaches, what are we trying to do? And I think we need to do more of these kind of shows. So parents, USTA, all the nation get involved in communication of the sport for young players and professional players. I think it will be amazing. Dale, thank you so much for today,
Francisco.
And I hope so you invite me to New York anytime.
I have to say, Francisco, that was the most fun on the road I had, was those 3 summers from 2004 to 2006. So very, very fun time being able to go to Mexico City. And I just told the story last week about, if you remember, the first year, and I want to make sure all of our tennis providers and upcoming tennis pros get involved in your junior year in college. Find a great tennis mentor. Don't go to finance. Don't go to marketing. Come to us. We want you. We have a place for you. USTA is heavily populated in all our different areas with former tennis players, not just on the court, but also off the court. And also keep in mind that the first year Francisco and I went to Mexico City, we didn't get paid for 10 to 12 days. We did it pro bono. It was part of our mission. And I will say the next couple of years we did get paid, but it's important to know that, that being of service also will take care of you in life.
Let me tell you, I see a quick thing. All these players that we took to Mexico that year, they were not the greatest players. Let's just stop right there. They came back from Mexico.
Yes.
They went to Stanford, University of Notre Dame, Harvard, Cornell. They became top players after these 12 days. That was the most amazing thing for all these players we took to Mexico. It was a nice experience. They came back with a different chip. And this is something I think parents need to do. They need to take out the kid and not treat them nicely, because we have to wake up 5, 6 in the morning, finish all day long, play tennis. And I think even to today, many of these players, they're still playing tournaments. And it was an amazing trip. But Del, our time is over today. Thank you so much. And I will see you again. Thank you for all the listeners. It was an amazing show today to learn something different, not just forehand, backhand, if not a pathway. What do we need to do? Thank you.
Hasta luego.
Adios. Ciao, ciao.
Did you dream of hitting aces and dominating the court? Silicon Valley Tennis Academy is your one-stop shop for becoming a tennis champion. We offer expert coaching, world-class facilities, and a supportive community to help you reach your full potential. Whether you're a beginner or a seasoned player, we have programs designed to fit your skill level and goals. Learn from experienced coaches who are passionate about the game and dedicated to your success. Join our growing team of talented players and see how Silicon Valley Tennis Academy can take your game to the next level. Visit our website at www.siliconvalleytennis.com to learn more and enroll today. Don't miss your chance to be a part of something special.